At a stage where many people may consider to slow down, you chose to start something new. What got you back into the playing field?
You're not going to spontaneously combust if you don't have something to keep you busy every day.
You've had quite the journey so far. If you had a magic wand to fix the one thing that's slowing Pesile down today, what would it be?
We tried unsuccessfully twice to bring in a very well compensated person that could do some of the stuff we spent a good deal of time talking about today, and we failed twice.
What's something you would offer them for them to be able to measure themselves against to sort of help them stay on track or to be able to excel and succeed in the world of entrepreneurship?
Some of the smartest people in the world will analyze something until there's nothing left to analyze, but by the time they've done it, it's too late. Be decisive. Is trust you're probably a subject matter expert, or you know an awful lot about what it is you're entrepreneuring into. Trust it. Trust your gut. Your gut's a very powerful, valuable asset. Don't leverage it enough. You know, there's a reason you decided to do this. Go with it.
Welcome to our show, Lead to Scale. This podcast is sponsored by Algo AI Partners. We help fintech services, companies, and businesses scale using smart AI solutions. If you want to book a free consultation to find out more, click the link in the description of the show. Today, I'm joined by Jim Fitzgerald, a repeat founder and executive who brings a unique, industry-agnostic operational lens to the world of fintech. Jim has spent decades building and scaling and exiting business, often navigating the friction that comes with the large, slow-moving enterprise partners. After a successful exit, Jim chose not to slow down, but to actually jump back in as co-founder and CEO at Paycile. At Pesile, he's applying a deeply process-driven, efficiency-first mindset to one of the most painful operational problems business face: payments, reconciliation, and cash flow predictability. Jim, that's my high-level take, but I'd love for you to introduce yourself in your own words. Who are you and what problems are you excited to be solving right now?
Well, there's lots of problems. Well, we hope to get to some of them. Hey, it's great to meet you. Great to have the opportunity to meet with you today. I'm looking forward to this conversation. To give you a little more background, I've been in, software and technology for the better half of my career, and had an exit, as you mentioned, about a year ago. But I wasn't really ready to become a gentleman farmer, so to speak. So I decided I needed to find something to do, and frankly, something. I come from the marketing space, and my last business was MarTech, so something that was not competitive, quite frankly, and saw this opportunity in payments, and I had no idea that many verticals, specifically insurance and property management, are really struggling on the financial side with the endless hours and manual reconciliation that goes on. So this was brought to my attention by a colleague of mine who spent some time at E&Y in the insurance space and explained to me that it was a real pain point. So fortunately, I've got my partner, he's got 28 years in the payment space. So I said, listen, you know something about payments. I know something about building software. I think there's some blue ocean here. Let's get to it. And that's what we've been working on for about the last 9 months.
That's really cool. So I'd like to, we'll get to Pesile and what you've been working the last 9 months momentarily. I'd just like to dig back a little bit into Jim, who Jim is, and what got you to where you are today. You've been a marketing guy, MarTech, software sort of space. How did you originally get into that world? And what pushed you towards building companies?
Yeah, it's a cool question. So I really started my career in sales, and the line I use, my wife's not a big fan of it, but the line I use is, I was a lazy salesperson. I didn't want to call people. I wanted people calling me. So kind of by default, when you look at the world through that lens, you better become a pretty good marketing person. So I was always intrigued in marketing, specifically inbound. And I had founded a couple of smaller businesses. It made a living, quite frankly. But then the third business I started about 21 years ago really relied a lot on technology, but more so on building a platform that people could reach when they needed it. And learned an awful lot about how people search and look for what they need when they need it. So I learned an awful lot about inbound marketing and setting up automation for leads and nurturing them through a cycle. And so we were very proud of the fact at my last company where we generated between 100 and 150 interested inbound leads every day, which is a great motivator for hiring salespeople. So we had a great sales team. We had an inbound marketing engine, and that allowed me the opportunity and the cash flow, quite frankly, to build out a pretty robust platform that focused on small businesses that were looking to do multi-channel marketing who didn't have a lot of experience in doing that. So not only were we fortunate enough to build that out, but it was a very nice virtuous cycle, because as we learned, we were able to pass along the learnings to our small business clients and just continue to build it out. And by the time I sold the business, we had successfully transacted with over 25,000 small business customers.
That's very cool. That's a very cool. And this is Terodel, that's correct?
Correct. Terodel is the name of the company, and I'm very pleased. The private equity group rolled it up under another business, but they're maintaining the brand and the identity of Taradel, because it did become somewhat well known in that space. And the folks that are they're operating it now are very much aligned with our mission. So I'm pleased to say the team is thrilled, and it was really, as a founder, it was a really cool. We wound up in a really cool place for everybody.
That's really cool, and I'm sure as founders that are listening on as well, it's a bit of a goal for everybody, right? To be able to build something, and if there's an exit plan, to be bought out, in the fashion that you've described it. And I'm sure that in itself is meaningful to you personally, but also to the rest of the team, that they know that they're working on a mission that sought out outside interest. I was just going to ask, sales, marketing, and then there's also the element of bringing in more salespeople. So there's a people management side. But the question that I had top of mind was, what was something that you'd learned during your time at Terodel that you didn't realize that was a profound learning, but now that you're venturing out into the new world of Paycile, you're pretty happy for that learning that came through?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think the couple things. One is we had an in-house development team, but we always supplemented that with outside contractors. And I will say that experience is very valuable, because you get to learn what you can outsource and what you can't, what you need to keep close to the vest on from not only from a proprietary standpoint, but to keep the team and mission aligned. Sometimes there are some functional things that you can outsource without really disrupting that, and finding out what that is, I think, is critical. So that experience was very valuable. The other experience, quite frankly, and maybe the most profound one, is coming into this new industry or new direction with the marketing chops that we developed over the last 20 years. I'm discovering now is very valuable. I see opportunities for us to leverage those learnings in the space we are now, because it's a different environment, and where we were competing before from an advertising and marketing standpoint was competitive, extremely so, and it's different in the space we're in now, and I'm kind of excited about our ability to draw in an audience and get them interested enough to listen to what we're doing. And I think as we continue to build on that and iterate it, I'm very, very confident that we're going to be able to scale it. And so bringing that kind of sales first mentality, building an environment where salespeople are excited to come in and work, I think is, particularly in a startup, is powerful. And I think we're going to be able to execute and deliver on the marketing side, which I think if we're teeing up a lot of prospects, as long as we do our job as software developers to solve the problem, I think we're going to be in good shape.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think it's a very happy medium to start a company where you've got a deep technical expertise side and plus the marketing side, the go-to-market sort of strategy piece all come together. That's very cool. You know, so here's the other piece where I'm starting to sit with a little bit. You're a serial entrepreneur. You've built many, you've sold many. At a stage where many people may consider to slow down, you chose to start something new. That's Pesile. And I'm curious, what is it about entrepreneurs that got you back into this? And this is just a very sidetrack. I was just curious. I mean, I think that's a very brave move, a very brave venture to make with all the other stuff that's happening in the current macroeconomics. What got you back into the playing field, especially in a space where it's Pesile, right? It's not your home turf, it's not your home territory. What got you into this?
Yeah, yeah, I like that question. I get it often. So, yeah, I think, well, when you get to a point, unfortunately, where you get to a point where you've got options. I could have said, I'm going to play golf more, maybe travel more,
or shovel snow, because I mean, you love snow.
I do. I'm a former Bostonian. I can't tell you how much I miss snow. If I ever want to see it again, I'll buy a postcard with a picture of it. Yeah, I'm not a fan. Anyway, so no, I think what the realization that hit me between the eyes when the last sale went through, and my last full-time day was, I think, March 31st or something. I was like, well, what the hell am I going to do? And it doesn't really hit you until it's kind of final. And I thought about just kind of the way I operate, and I said, Jim, you're going to spontaneously combust if you don't have something to keep you busy every day. And that's really a big part of it. I mean, I get up now and I'm jazzed about the problems we've got to solve, meeting new people, bringing new hires on. It just doesn't stop. It's, to me, I think an entrepreneur is somebody that, let me rephrase this. If I'm in a room with a bunch of folks that have founded companies, I think one of the common things you'll hear is I was always that kid that couldn't sit still. I was always that kid that I guess today would be diagnosed with ADD, and it's almost universal. I like to be able to jump from one thing to another and still feel like I'm moving the puck forward. And I think that's probably the differentiator between a successful entrepreneur and somebody who struggles with it, is there's some kind of internal discipline that kicks in at the right moment where it's like, okay, you've done that long enough, it's time to move over here, but you have the option of doing it. And I really think that's a big part of it, is having the option to do what you want when you want, but also with the realization that sometimes you have to do it, and somehow that comes together. The everything kind of falls in line, and you move forward. At least that's been my case. So yeah, it's just the realization that I knew I didn't want to not have something to think about every morning to add my business practices, and
Yeah.
that's kind of what gets me jumping out of bed in the morning.
Well, thanks for sharing. I was going to say, I think I'm going to take one more sort of sidestep segue into this. I think there's a moment for some real profound wisdom coming from a very experienced individual as yourself. For folks who are either young entrepreneurs or haven't had the reps in the experience, what's an advice, or what's a question, or what's something you would offer them for them to be able to measure themselves against to sort of help them stay on track, or to be able to excel and succeed in the world of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, if I could take one thing, it's learning to be decisive. And there's some of the smartest people in the world will analyze something until there's nothing left to analyze, but by the time they've done it, it's too late. I'm a huge fan of making a decision and getting a data point. And once you've got that point to refer to, you can move on to something else. Now, not all the decisions you're going to make are correct, but every time you make one, you've got incredibly valuable learning, whether it was good or bad. So versus thinking about making the decision and never knowing. So I think if you look at any startup, the original, I don't know if it was Eisenhower said, plans are useless, but planning's invaluable. There's something about coming up with a strategy and making decisions and getting some of those data points. And your mission, your vision may still be very similar, but you're gonna have to pivot. Well, if you don't make decisions, you're not going to get anywhere. So I get that question a lot, and that's my answer. It's be decisive. And here's another thing: is trust. You're probably a subject matter expert, or you know an awful lot about what it is you're entrepreneuring into. Trust it. Trust it. Trust your gut. Your gut's a very powerful, valuable asset, and a lot of folks, particularly the more analytical ones, don't leverage it enough. There's a reason you decided to do this. Go with it.
That's very, very deep. I appreciate that, and I think easier said than done for sure. Because there's a bit of a terrifying feel to making a decision. You kind of build emotions with it,
and very often it's you're burning your own cash. It's to get to that level. But to me, that's maybe the most powerful motivator of all. You're going to pay attention.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jim. I think that's very deep. And personally, I think inspiring for myself first and foremost. So I thank you for sharing that. To get into world of Pesile, you've now seen both sides of the equation, right? You started the companies, so the speed and the accountability of bootstrapping, just like what we're talking about, burning your own cash. And naturally, you've scaled Taradel, that there was an element of operational drag, if you will, that comes with scale. When you have a bigger company, bigger team, there's a lot more moving parts that sort of may slow you down a little bit. And that contrasts really sets the stage for how you're applying a disruptive mindset to the payment space today. At least that's how I'm sort of taking it, that you're applying both of this in that space. So if we were to get into Pesile today, I hear you loud and clear. It was sort of a connection serendipitous where you've got someone in the space 20 years plus. You've got your thing, your marketing skill set, and now you're coming together. Walk us through Pesile today. I understand you're building a platform. What is this?
Yeah. So Pesile was designed originally as a application that would work through an API that would, let's say, work with your existing ERP to take your payments, process them, and at the same time reconcile them back to your general ledger. That's very high level what the pain point is. What we've discovered, and we were going to, by the way, initially focus entirely on the insurance space because there's just it's problematic and needs solving. So what we've discovered, there's a couple of other industries. Property management is another one, where whenever you have multiple lines, let's say in an invoice, multiple line items, and payments spread over time, in multiple products, and short payments, overpayments, late payments, getting that well organized in time for close is a challenge. And the more interviewing we do, the more surveying we're doing, we're finding that we're probably not going to knock on the door of Progressive or State Farm and solve their challenges. They probably have it figured out, or at least figured out to the scale they're at. The opportunities for us are going to be more like a fast-growing managing general agent who's limited in their ability to scale because they have back office issues. They've got a dynamite product a good sales team, and they're filling a void that hasn't been met, but they can only scale as fast as their infrastructure will carry them. So I think that's a huge part of kind of the messaging we want to deliver. So that's one portion of it. But we're also seeing, as we look at these early engagements that we're having, these discussions that we're having, is, well, what value can we add on, kind of the receivables transactional data as we're getting it. So we're also building out kind of a cash forecasting tool. So so that's, I think, will add additional value. And finally, the kind of to put a bow on this is we're building, beyond a simple dashboard, we're going to build a narrative build tool that will explain to non-financial folks what's going on, at least from a receivables and payment standpoint. So, and all of these will be powered with the help of AI. So, you can't swing a dead cat without hitting 17 people that are using AI to do the next greatest thing. But to me, it's a perfect use case. It's numbers and critical mass and machine learning to accurately predict and forecast, what's going on within an enterprise. So, so ultimately, if there's 1,000 transactions over time, not immediately, but over time, the machine will tell you that, okay, 847 of those match perfectly, but 70 of those, we have a 90% accuracy or 90% certainty that they probably should fall this way. And, that would be the first few months, but given the way things are moving now, after 6 months of data collection, we should be able to say, with nearly mathematical certainty, these transactions should be bucketed this way. And I think that's where the real value kicks in.
Got you. I appreciate you taking the time to sort of walk this through. Now, before we actually get a little deeper into Pesile, because you mentioned that you've taken the time to sort of survey and research, and at the heart of any business problem is going to be a product market fit. So I'm real curious, a high level, what are the biggest shifts you see in how businesses think about payments infrastructure as you conduct your surveying and your sort of research about this product market fit?
Yeah, and of course this is limited to the discussions I've had. We're in the process of doing a much more formal survey. But you have to start somewhere. But what I'm hearing is we validated, at least anecdotally in my opinion, talking about making decisions, we're moving forward. So, but we validated it's a problem. I think the business challenge, which is universal both for us and for our potential clients, is where does this fall? As anything that's going to disrupt something. Where does this fall in the priority of the individual business? If we look at the insurance space, I think they understand it. They realize it's something that needs to be fixed, but their insurance companies are, by nature, risk averse. What a surprise! So we need to crack the code as to how we get that messaging across, that this is, from a disruptive standpoint, not too much, and that the value that'll be delivered, the ROI that'll happen, is nearly immediate. And so that, without showing too many cards, that goes into how we plan on pricing this and positioning it. All the fun stuff that now this is the marketing analyst kicking in, that will help us with our decisions going forward, because ideally this should be something that should be painless. It never is, but there's I'm sure I could line up 1,000 SaaS salespeople who want to pull their hair out every day because they know they can help their client, and it's not a big deal to do it, but it's how do you get to the top of that pyramid as far as things that must be done in order to become a more competitive business. Now, there are, you go to any good sized business, there's probably an SVP or an EVP of digital transformation whose job it is to make these things happen. But where does that individual sit in the pecking order? And how, are they going to get an audience with the CEO to get this done, or are they just fighting for their own projects like everybody else? And that's the landscape that we're navigating right now and trying to figure out.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Thanks for sharing. I was going to say real quick, just from a market insight perspective, whatever you've heard, where do you see companies today most underestimate the true operational cost of having this legacy payment system, especially in like the risk averse verticals you mentioned, right? Insurance and property management.
Yeah. I think it's significant. They're missing. I think they're missing because it's just kind of the way it's always been done. We have a room full of people that are doing manual reconciliation, and I think at least not necessarily the real number, but the perceived number in their head is it's slow, but how much does it really cost? And I think that's where the education has to kick in. It's significant. It's significant, and particularly significant to anybody who's got investors. And if this is if this is slowing your close down by a week or 4 or 5 days, that's not good. Think of how fast things move and how quickly people want to invest and grow and build businesses, and if you're waiting needlessly to get better financial information for you to make, I can't imagine anybody out there that isn't hounded by either the CEO, the executive team, or the investors as to where the month end. Those are the levers I think we have to pull, and I think now it's easy for me to say that. You go to my prospect, the CEO at the prospect business, and he's got probably a dozen things that he's trying to get done too. So that's the challenge, and which is why I'm a fan of marketing and talking to people and at least getting conversations so we can find out where the real hidden challenges are. And kind of to follow up on that too, I'm a big fan of I think it's Eric Ries's the Lean Startup Way, and building and designing something visual that a potential client can see, and with your MVP, your minimal viable product, and finding out what are the things that they say they want, and then what are the things that they really need, and sometimes they're mutually exclusive. So you have to be patient and willing to you've got a core. We've talked about it already, kind of the core solution here, but what are the nuances to that are going to accelerate adoption with your constituents, not necessarily for marketing, but when the thing actually gets into place. We want this to be, right? We want raving reviews that this is the best thing since sliced bread. But that's not going to happen if this thing is purely functional. It really has to emphasize kind of what we're calling autonomous financial stability. That's kind of the goal we want Pesile to deliver on. You get to the point where you can just trust this thing. It's not going to happen overnight, but we're not going to get there unless we're building the solution the way people are actually going to use it.
Right.
It sounds a little nebulous, but I'm hoping I'm making my point. It's you don't just design it yourself and throw it out there and assume the market's going to accept it. You're going to tweak it, and we try to get ahead of that as we're developing.
Yeah, allow me to play it back a little bit. What I'm hearing here is the disruptive nature of Paycile isn't more so in coming up with a crazy innovative way of doing something new or new technology, but rather to challenge the old adage of this is how we've always done it. And so to break through that And then naturally, as part of that, you mentioned education is going to be important, and I'd like to dig into that in a moment. There's also really what you're doing is you're challenging the paradigm of how any company is structured, which is people, process, systems. And so when it comes to that, the focus here is on process and systems. How do we rejig this to actually make it suitable for the people to then use this in a very native, user-friendly style approach? Is that sort of like a fair playback of how you described it? And I get it. It's very cursory. You've shared a lot more details here.
It is. I'm glad you're recording this because I'll use it. That was excellent.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, no, that's the intent of this. This is for you to use as well. To get into Pesile here, then, you walked us through Pesile in terms of the platform you're building, and 3 core pillars from what I understand. 1, automated reconciliation to sort of take away the manual process, and you mentioned there's a 5-day delay in close, and so really that's working capital that's stuck, that's money that's not realized, that could be realized and can do wonders. The second is then forward-looking, this forecasting predictive element to it. And then the third is a whole thing that comes together under the so what, the narrative reporting. Those are the 3 pillars. Did I get that right?
That's accurate. Yep.
Perfect. So now with this, if we were to look into the business today right now, I know you started to get into this. I just want to get a little deeper. What progress, or what does the business look like today, and what progress are you most proud of?
Yeah. Cool. So we've got the built more of the back end. So where the actual processing happens, so we can take a transaction, run it through the partnership we have with the payment processor, and get the funds distributed, both coming in and going out. Well, let's say in the case of an insurance company, policy payments coming in and claims payments going out. And by the way, one of the things I didn't mention is the not only inbound but outbound. And the outbound's really kind of cool with insurance companies where, I think the last time we checked, 40% of them are still sending physical checks. So, and I don't think I have to explain to anybody on this podcast, what that costs. And the whole, quickly, one of the conversations we had was with somebody in the specialty auto space, and their business, let's say you're driving a Lamborghini or a 55, an antique car that's worth a fortune, and you get into a fender bender taking it to a car show. Well, they're like, okay, we need you to take that to an adjuster. There's one, 17 miles from you. And they'll look at it and we'll get you a check in a couple weeks. Versus their competitor who says, take a picture of your bumper and we'll ACH the funds to you this afternoon. From a customer experience standpoint, who's going to win? So this is just another kind of use case for what we're trying to help them with to make these, truly a digital transformation. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. So where we are is we've got that's built. What we're working on now, and that we should have an MVP at the end of Q1, or the 4 Ps we're calling them. P match is the reconciliation; these transactions match. P predict, which is kind of the cash flow forecasting. P map, which is really an internal tool for our development team, which will help them with integrations, because we anticipate a lot of integrations with ERPs and integrators that are working on projects with their prospective clients. And P site, which is the insights and dashboarding and narrative that we explained. Those things are all kind of under construction as we speak. I had a meeting earlier today. 2 of them are well on their way, and I'm confident we'll get the other 2 built by the end of March. And then our job is to take that and get to market and learn as quickly as we can so we can build a more robust, really truly production-ready version of those. But they'll be good enough, MVP, good enough to get us where we need to and onboard some clients.
Got you. So MVP's ready end of Q1, and that's where you can really go client facing and start to push the marketing side of it, the GTM side of this.
Right.
That's exciting. Tell me a little bit more about the education piece, because I think we were starting to get into this, right? To disrupt an industry that is risk averse inherently is disruptive in its approach, because it's about how do you manage expectations, but how do you avoid the internal knee-jerk resistance that sort of comes through. You've got a rich experience in the world of marketing. I'd love to understand how do you navigate the educational piece of this, as well as the GTM side of bringing your product to them in a way where you're not taking, you're reducing the sort of sales cycle timeline for this.
Yeah, a couple ways. One is I've invested a good deal of time building out my contact base on LinkedIn with individual invitations for folks to connect with me, and I don't want to do it, and I'm really trying to emphasize this part. I'm not doing this from a sales perspective. There's always a sales motivation here, don't get me wrong, but it really is to build an audience of folks that I can lever and survey and get valuable information from. So we've done a good job, I think, of established connections with, for let's say in the insurance industry alone, over 1,000 executive level contacts over the last 5 or 6 months. So I haven't turned that engine on yet. It's sitting there idling, but I will personally be reaching out to those folks for some quick conversations to find out, what would motivate them, where they see their pain points, and what would motivate them to consider a change. Another one is, we're working with very early stages with a professional research firm who's going to reach beyond that and give us their version. They're very good at what they do, and get maybe 300 survey responses, just enough, I think, to be statistically valid for my purposes. Not this. I don't think it perfects the enemy of good. I don't think we have to go too far. And collect data in that way, so we can really start, to your earlier point, creating the educational messaging we need, and then it'll just be a question of how do we broadcast that? Is it LinkedIn? Is it direct mail? It could be any number of ways, and that's where the fun begins for me. And we're generating leads now, so I'm pleased with, as I mentioned earlier, that from the way I think some of the folks in the space are going to market is probably different than the way we're doing it. And I'm encouraged that the more ammunition we get in the form of data from these surveys, the better prepared we'll be to build marketing campaigns that are much more topical and meaningful to the audience we're trying to reach.
Yeah, you mentioned that the way you're going about this is a little different than how people reach out of the space. Tell me more a little bit about that. And just before you do, my sort of outside-in assumption would be that in industries like insurance and property management, risk-averse, high trust requirement, how do you navigate the trust influence or the adoption for this?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think it's a lot of it just has to do with think of your own experiences when you're going to make a decision that's meaningful. What are you looking for from a credibility standpoint? So everything about what we've done so far, from our branding to the website design, how we present ourselves, I think is all about reinforcing the fact that, hey, you were a startup, but for instance, we kind of had to apply to get API access to a big ERP in the space we're interested in. And for the privilege of doing that, they charge you $25,000 a year, and you still have to go through a committee to get it. And we were told by somebody else that as far as they were concerned, going in as a startup was a non-starter. They probably wouldn't even consider us. But somehow we were able to, between my partner, who's the subject matter expert in payments, and our ability to showcase a little bit of the bona fides we have from past experiences, that they rubber stamped it. So why am I telling you that story? I think it's more than just here's a cool solution. It's you're dealing in an environment where your principal contact is the CEO or the COO, or who are co-founders, and I think that lends a lot of weight. It really does.
No, I appreciate that. I also appreciate the research first angle too, because at the end of the day, it removes the very classical sales pitching angle to it. But really, there's sales motivations there, just like you said. But I think that insight piece it really reframes the tonality of the outreach.
Yeah, listen, we're lifelong learners, right? And I think that's what I want to broadcast. I'm genuinely interested in what you've got to say. And I may not be a good fit, but I'm going to keep talking to you because I want to learn. And I do think these things kind of spiderweb in a cool way. You have a conversation and a nice conversation, a nice chat, and it's like, Jim, I don't think it's a fit here, but I do have a colleague at such and such that let me make an intro. And that's to me, that's how the world works. I think people buy from people.
Absolutely.
Technology is important. Don't get me wrong, but if somebody's going to put their neck on the line for a significant, somewhat disruptive, as much as we like to throttle that back, decision, they want to feel like they're dealing with somebody they can trust. So everything about our brand, I think, it's like any other financial institution. I think it's different than being a marketing technology platform delivers differently than somebody who says, I want to take over all of the cash coming into your business. Thank you. It requires a little bit of a different approach.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially the way you put it. And I think you're right. I mean, people buy from people. I think it's more true now than ever, given how much technology exists and the automations and the bots and all the automations that sort of add noise to the signal and dilutes that signal to noise ratio. So I can really appreciate that. Flipping this conversation a little bit on its head so far. Sorry. Where do you find the most bottlenecks in your current operations? Where are you encountering the most challenges as you're going through this? Because you've outlined the roadmap: Q1 MVP, Q2 40. You're gonna, take this engine that's idling, that's full of leads, and you're gonna full throttle this ahead. Where are you experiencing challenges today?
Yeah, I think it's. This is not uncommon. It's this feeling like. Running as fast as I can, but I'm not getting it done. And I'm not sure if anybody in a startup hasn't experienced this. I mean, it's just, it comes with the tardiness. What's the bottleneck? I think the bottleneck is probably me, but I can only spend so much time in a day on what it is I'm trying to accomplish. And there are many things. And even coming from the last business, if I wanted something done, I had, a small army of people to execute for me. Now it's, most of the people we hire are devs, so, they're making sure we've got this marketing stuff done. It's great because I know a little bit about it, but I'm actually the one who's going to execute on it. So that's kind of the problem. But I can't go out there right now, given the precious few resources we have financially, and power up, I should say, a team of people that can do this. And very often, if you want to bring in truly qualified people, they're normally they're normally people who have a staff. So that's the part that I find challenging. It's like if I bring in somebody who's capable of doing this, they're still going to need somebody to do it. You follow me? So I think that's, and this is not news to anybody who's in my position. I think it's like, how do you keep the puck moving and check the boxes of what you need to do to hit your roadmap and meet your goals, while at the same time keep making sure you've got people on the couch that you're potentially recruiting who can come in and do some of this stuff when you're ready, and maintaining relationships with vendors or contractors. And finally, we spent a lot of time today talking about the outreach I need to do with prospects, me personally, and because I think that's where I'm going to add the most value right now.
Yeah.
But to me, that's why I'm the bottleneck, and I think that's tough. Get over it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was actually just going to ask, so, you've got, you're the bottleneck in terms of the direction for the devs as well, the Q1 roadmap deliverable, the bottleneck in terms of the GTM, because that falls within your space. And naturally, there's a little bit of a chicken egg scenario where you can throw money at the problem, but you're not there yet to do so. And then the people you're going to bring in require other bodies to be able to execute.
Yeah.
In your experience, I mean, naturally, like you said, it's not the first time you've gone through this. What's the most? Yeah. So I think you see where I'm going with this. How do you move past this? Because I think many.
And this is, by the way, this is my strategy. I'm not suggesting anybody else subscribe to this. It's just how I'm looking at this. The business I did sell last year, I bootstrapped, and that's a different animal. This business, intentionally, when we set it up, my partner and I agreed we wanted to get it to a certain level, and then go raise funds. Mm-hmm. So that's why we're in this kind of no man's land right now. We agreed upon a certain budget that we don't want to burn through personally, and but when the time is right, we plan on bringing in some funds to get us to that level where we can staff up and do all the appropriate things. So I can't see the future, but I think it's the right path for us. And that catalyst will be onboarding successfully some clients and showing that this isn't just bubble gum and paper clips and vapor. It's real business with extremely high upside.
Yeah, that's exciting, and I think the whole funding piece makes a lot of sense as well. It's about getting that critical milestone, and then scales comes through. And this might be a bit of a leading question because you sort of already got into it, but I think it's important I ask this nonetheless. It's a personal favorite question that I like to ask. You've had quite the journey so far. If you had a magic wand to fix the one thing that's slowing Pesile down today, what would it be?
It would have been making the right hire from a business development standpoint, and I can tell you this from experience. We tried unsuccessfully twice to bring in a very senior, very well compensated person that could do some of the stuff we spent a good deal of time talking about today, and we failed twice. And I'm honestly I'm a bit discouraged with the talent pool and how it's represented. It's just so, but those are mistakes you can't afford to make more than a couple of times. So that's when the pivot we had strategically was that's going to be me. So in fact we brought in a person a bit more junior, who's doing everything we expect them to do, let's say from a sales standpoint, but they don't have the Rolodex that the folks we originally wanted to bring in. So that to me is the approach. Getting back to data points and making decisions. Yeah, that's a decision I made. I'm going with. I'm just going to get it done.
Got you. And you mentioned that the magic wand would have been to hire the business development.
Sure.
Something
if I could have, right, the magic wand would be that first hire we made, that senior person would have delivered.
Gotcha.
And maybe that's poor recruiting on our part. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it is. But to go through that twice was, I got to tell you, a kick in the gut.
I bet it must have been quite the experience too. I mean, there's that saying, right? Hire slow, fire fast. But even then,
which I subscribe to.
Yeah, and I was gonna say even then, finding the right talent and pressure testing them. It's I think a fascinating challenge in people management.
We started that process last July.
Yeah.
And
so, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we just landed on this new person,
Yeah.
junior person, just in the last week or so. So we lost 6 months of momentum that could have been applied to where we are. So, but hey, that's in retrospect, probably the only significant thing where I think we dropped the ball. So,
yeah.
and you're gonna drop the ball. There's
part of making decisions, right?
Yeah, it's all part of the ride, part of the journey.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big believer that, hey, look, we are responsible for the actions we take. Our responsibility, and this is my sort of take, right? Our responsibility is to take that action. The outcome is how fate. You can replace fate with whoever, whatever. If you're a believer or not believer, you can replace it with whatever it is. I'm a believer. So me, fate unfolds the outcomes that is then ripe for the effort that you put in. And so to me, I'm sure you can appreciate this in your Terodel days. There were probably some, gut punches that you took, but in hindsight, you were pretty damn happy that they landed the way they did for what they unfolded later on.
100%. Yeah, and if you've got to have your I don't know, your core beliefs and your whole idea of where you want to be, where you want to get to. And sure, things are going. People are going to throw rocks in your way, but as long as you focus on the end game, you should be okay. But at the same time, you have to build something sustainable enough that can defend itself from the inevitable. So you'll often hear, let's say you get a young solopreneur or somebody that wants to start a business in a trade, and the advice they'll hear is, well, you're going to want to have at least 6 months of expenses in the bank, and it's almost laughable because a lot of these folks don't have 60 minutes worth of expenses in the bank, but they go and do it. And God bless them. I mean, I think that without those folks, this world wouldn't run. They take a chance. But you realize once some of the things you mentioned, and there were a handful at Taradel I could rattle off. I mean, just COVID for one. I mean, if you don't have a solid foundation, you didn't survive. So yeah, it takes a while to get there, but you're happy that you did do what you needed to do to survive some of the curveballs that get thrown at you.
Yeah, you've had quite the incredible journey, Jim. I am appreciative of your time. The one last question I've got, and this is looking forward looking now. You've already started to share a little bit about that with Q1 and then the GTM piece. You mentioned funding. I was curious, do you have a timeline for that? Do you have a milestone for what you're pushing for?
Yeah, I think we'd like to get funding situated, or at least not necessarily in the bank, but by the end of 2026.
Very cool. 2026 is going to be a very big year. You're going to have your MVPs come live. You got your leads coming, locking the first clients, getting the funding in. I'm excited. I'm excited for what's to come for you, Jim.
Yeah, we are too. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I bet. Jim, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation. What really stands out is how much of this comes back to the focus, the process, removing the friction, and not just for businesses, but the consumer-centric approach. As well, actually, let me take that back. Not consumer-centric, people-centric approach, be it customers or internal teams, and you're doing it all with a discipline and bootstrap. Before we wrap up, Jim, for the listeners who are struggling with the operational drag in their payments and want to, rethink their infrastructure, what can they learn? Where can they learn more about the work you and Pesile are doing, and how can they connect with you?
Sure. I would encourage them to go to paycile.com, Paycile.com, and grab a few minutes. There's a link to schedule a call. Grab a few minutes with me on the phone, and let's just chat. And if there's a fit, great, which would be terrific. But at a minimum, I think we'll both learn from one another.
I appreciate that. And for our audience, I'll put the link in our show description as well, so that way you can click on that as well. If today's conversation about process and efficiency resonated with you, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast wherever you listen. It helps us bring more leaders like Jim onto the show. If you have a specific question about scaling or AI implementations, send us a message on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear your feedback and questions as well. And that brings us to the end of this episode. This podcast is sponsored by Algo AI Partners. We help fintech service companies and businesses scale using smart AI solutions. If you want to book a free consultation to find out more, please click the link in the show description. Thank you.